Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Purpose Beyond Motherhood. Nicole and I are so excited because today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Emily Landers, and she is a precious friend of mine from college. That was a couple years younger than me. I don't really remember how many because, getting old. But we are so excited to have Emily come on and share just some of her wisdom and her story, just walking and navigating the difficult journey of infertility and just navigating that. And I am letting her introduce herself because she is like, I feel like she does so many cool things. So, Emily, I'm letting you take it away.
I love it.
Tell us
Well,
all the things.
thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction. I have no doubt you would have done a fabulous job for me, but I can do a little intro because I do a lot of things and it is sometimes challenging to communicate them all in one sweep. But I would say, first and foremost, I am a very happy wife to my husband, Luke, my very best friend who I love dearly. We have a golden doodle named Maui. In my day to day, you will find me working a corporate position at Pepperdine University, which has been a huge blessing from God. But then, if you are familiar with my voice, you likely will have heard it on my popular podcast, How'd She Do That? A weekly conversation with female founders where we really focus in on a lot of specifics around business, entrepreneurship, and that has been up and running for the last 5 years. That was a passion project that started in 2020 that we since have taken to lots of different spaces into e-commerce, which was last October, which was really fun. So we continue to build out HSDT as I dive into all things corporate in Malibu. So very fun.
The fact that you get to live in Malibu is like
I
the
know.
dream.
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm jealous. Every time I see her post on Instagram, I'm like, the life of Malibu. Here
It
I am
is
with like a tornado warning.
it is
And
the
you're like,
most like surreal place to live. And I tell my husband all the time, even yesterday we were driving into church and I was like, honey, this is an absurdly beautiful day. Like every day is just absurdly beautiful. So I have a lot to be very excited for and very grateful for. But even as you were doing the introduction, and saying she's going to share about her experience with infertility, I was like, how did I get here?
I know it is a loaded question. And I was telling Nicole before we hopped on with you, I'm like, I would just love for you to share if there's anything you wish you could have told yourself, if you want to share just how you got here, whatever really is on your heart. There's women that are in your same shoes that are listening. So anything, like if you want to start from the beginning, if you want to start, how long have y'all been married actually? Did you already say that?
We've been married 9 years
Okay. Okay.
this December.
Cuties.
And I can share and then we can think through kind of some of the details here. But I think, it's interesting when I look back on our 9 years, there was probably 7 or 8 of those that it was like, okay, let's just keep waiting to have kids. Let's do
Mhm.
this. Let's do that. We want to travel.
Yeah.
I've worked in like boutique hotels as well. So travel was an important element. All of these silly things that in the beginning of my infertility experience, when I realized this was going to be a part of my journey, I had so much guilt around
Mm.
all those things that I had said, no, let's wait, let's do this first, let's do that first, and really had to kind of reckon with that later on. But I think it was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, which is crazy as the years add up, that I started to look around in my
Mm.
personal community here in Malibu. And I have an incredible group of friends, but I started to realize, like, okay, this is getting a little weird. Like, everyone is pregnant or having children, and I'm not hearing about any issues with anyone. And isn't there like a ratio that I should be aware of with like groups of women? It's like 1 out of 4. And I was kind of looking around like, um,
Uh-huh.
where's the one? Is it actually going to be me? I actually remember
Girl.
sensing that.
It makes me feel very comforted because that is exactly what happened in my own situation. So for you, just you putting words to that, I remember looking around me and being like, The flies are dropping and I'm still flying. Why am I the only one still up here? Please, okay, keep going.
Well, yeah, I
Yes.
think that was an experience that was early on that I started to feel this. I think I had a sense, maybe a hint,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I think this might be the route that I'm headed down.
Yeah. Yes. And you're like, I don't,
Yeah.
pick someone else, please. For sure. Okay, so how many years have y'all been trying, would you say?
It's hard to really know. I'll go back in my app but then when you have
Mm,
doctor's appointments, you go back and you're like, "Oh, actually, okay." I would say probably 2 years.
okay.
And I think that the thing that has surprised me the most about this whole experience is the emotional turmoil that people don't talk about. Just the little digs daily that you have to navigate and move through. That's been the most shocking thing to me. Apart from, different procedures and things like that, those were challenging, but the emotional side is what
Mm,
I really have had to reckon with and be like, wow, I had no idea that this is how you could feel in this experience.
yes, absolutely. I think that is the part that you cannot express verbally. I feel like no one can understand the magnitude of it until they're in it. And then even if you're walking closely with someone, you get like a glimpse. But I think they don't see the like behind the curtain where you found out two of your friends were pregnant the same day and you're crying in the floor, or like
Mhm.
the baby shower invite that you smiled the whole way through and you got in your car and you just broke. Like
Mhm.
that, it is such a heavy, and it's not talked about a lot in the church, which is also why we exist, because we're trying to bring
Mhm.
that, build that bridge and bring that partnership with the church.
Mhm.
But how did your friend, like, as you've navigated this, how do you feel like, have your friends, they've probably tried their best to understand, or have they been kind of afraid to talk about it? What do you feel like that's been like, if you don't mind sharing that?
Mhm. I think
It might be
when
all across the board.
Right. I think when I started sharing on social media,
Mm.
which is a whole different, in and of itself, a conversation. I think when I started
Yeah.
to share more publicly on social media, my friends felt they had more permission to bring it up and
Mm.
say, like, oh, I saw, I just love you. We're praying for you all the time. I think of you. I think it is such a hard, I haven't been on their side of it, so I don't know how I would feel, but it's just the most unimaginable experience that I try to share as much as I possibly can. Like this weekend, we were at a party and we all ended up by a fire pit, like afterwards, after party kind of vibes. And we were doing like 1 to 1,000 questions. It's a thing you can Google, and there's all these questions you can ask. And one of the questions that one of our guy friends, it was like couples hanging out, one of our guy friends asked me was, what is your it wasn't fear, it was like, what's another word for fear, like if you, oh, a phobia, what's your phobia? And I said, okay, well, how deep are we going here, and what are we considering a phobia, right?
Yes.
And I said, well, my low phobia, is work related. So I shared some things there, and I said, but if you guys want us to go really deep around the campfire, my biggest phobia is that, because for those of you listening, my experience is I've never been pregnant, I've never had a miscarriage, I have nothing. When people ask about my experience, there's really nothing to talk about, which is also really challenging. We also don't have a
Mhm.
diagnosis. We have nothing to say about this experience besides the emotion. And maybe that's why I'm so connected to the emotional side of it, because I
Mhm.
have I have no nothing to hide behind. I have no, literally nothing
Yeah.
to talk about. And so I said, if we want to go deep with this phobia question, I said, my deepest phobia is that I experience all of this heartache and turmoil in infertility, and there's more pain ahead, miscarriage or child loss, or like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my biggest
Yes.
phobia. And I said, sorry guys,
Hmm.
but I think it's
No.
important. Like if you're given that opportunity, and if you
Yeah.
have the opportunity to share, I think it's important to share that. And you know, most of my friends are great and amazing. Most of the time, like, oh no, we were, just any,
Mhm.
and I share the phobia of, my child's going to be the youngest and everyone else will be so much older. No one will even care about our family stage because they'll all be at a different stage.
Yes. Yeah, there it is like a multifaceted lesson in navigating fear. That I feel like for women that are walking through it that don't know the Lord and don't have community, I'm like, or and your husband's not like on his knees with you, that like crushes my soul. But everything you're talking through, I totally resonates with me personally, because we are unexplained still.
Wow.
And I'm like, I now we're I don't know, we're done now. But in my mind, I'm like, I can understand not having the diagnosis, not having an answer. I mean, there's so many things that you're like, Lord, what are we doing? And if the purpose is his glory, like I'm here for it, but you're also like the heaviness, can you like lift the heaviness and
Mm-hmm.
just bless my womb in one swoop? Like, can we just make
Mm-hmm.
this? But when you started sharing yours on social media, I was so proud of you because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I was just like, her platform, she has a platform and people are listening and seeing what women like respond with that are just because Emily's beautiful, has this beautiful life in Malibu. I'm sure it's easy for women to judge and be like, she has it easy, she
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you sharing that, I feel like it just leveled the playing field and brought such a unity and just you're standing with these women, which I love. So I'm just proud of you for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes. Nicole, do you have any questions?
No, well, Emily, one thing that you said, it really just like touched my heart so much about,
Mm,
um, when you were playing that question game, with your friends and just thinking through of
mm,
it could just not, only be this
mm,
because yes, you're walking through infertility, but you could see child loss, you could see a miscarriage, you could just see all of these things. And I just would love for you to kind of share, if you don't mind, of how do you continue to put one step in front of the other? How do
it's
you
Mm-hmm.
good.
just continue to move day by day and still just like trusting and believing no matter what, and if almost
Mm-hmm.
just in the Lord, and how can you keep going?
Such a good question. Definitely not an expert, but it's a timely one because yesterday our pastor was speaking on the Beatitudes of Jesus. And at the end, he said, if you're suffering or if you're grieving, would you stand? And in full transparency, my husband and I are so exhausted by those requests. We are
Yeah.
don't stand anymore. We're like, we aren't standing, but we do feel this deeply in our soul, but we're not going to stand.
Yeah.
So, but that's not your question. But I think that hopefully that provides permission or just
Yes. Yep.
some kind of encouragement to someone that it's, we feel that so deeply. We feel that request so deeply, but we're so exhausted by just doing these tasks. And but to your point, how do you carry on yesterday? And this is great, just practical thoughts that I think a lot of women don't necessarily share. But I think it's important for me. It's not important for everybody, but for me, it's been important to talk about it while I'm in this experience.
Hmm.
Good.
I didn't want to pass through this experience and then it would be very disingenuous for me to have never shared anything because I'm a different person from this experience
Yeah.
and I can't not communicate that. I'm like bursting at the seams to communicate how transformative and challenging this has been. But Nicole, I love your question because last night I was on the phone with my mom, and these are personal updates, but I think that they're important to remind people. We've had a change of insurance recently. We're going to have to shift
Mm,
doctors. We have gone to doctors and realized elements about the doctors that we're not going to continue on with them. And so there were all these things that we need to still do and we need to still move forward with. And my mom said, well, and everyone loves to be encouraging. And my mom is the most incredible encouragement to me during this. But she said, well, I guess, the next thing to do is to do the next thing. And I was annoyed with her when she said that. I was like, okay, you're killing me because, but then I kind of like stepped back and I was like, okay. And I was like, well, the thing I did this month that's in my
Mhm.
control is I bought new prenatals.
It's great. Yeah.
That's what's in my control this month.
Yeah.
That's it. And I have to accept that tiny movement forward is what's happening this month.
Yes.
I've got holidays coming up. We've got the new year. I have to give myself grace as we navigate, doctor shifts
Mhm.
and insurance. So for
Mhm.
me, taking the small wins and just saying,
That's
okay,
good.
God, I did this tiny part, and you might ask me to do a bigger thing later down the road. But for this month, I'm doing this and I'm getting acupuncture. Okay, I did a few things,
Yes, for sure. I love that because it really is just I mean, what's the verse? Faith like a mustard seed. I'm like, whatever little step it is, I think that just promoting that forward motion in your mind and in your heart is super impactful. Because I feel like my advice to women is always just one day at a time. I'm like, do not look at 6 months from now. Do not look at your next birthday. Don't look at, just try to keep it like in your now, because with infertility looking way far ahead, it just adds to that weight. And it's like, you can only hold so much. And then the Lord has the rest in his hands. I forgot to mention this, but you do have a twin sister.
I do have a
And
twin sister.
y'all have the sweetest relationship. I remember admiring it in college.
Aww.
So walking through, I'm sure this crushes her heart because she wants to probably fix this for you, stat. How, with the holidays coming up, how do you navigate keeping your heart? The holidays were the most triggering times for me, in full transparency. Is there anything that you feel like would benefit a listener that's about to walk into the holidays, that doesn't have children yet? Anything that you do that has helped you in the past or that you're going to try this year, or advice to the sister that has the kids that's, going to be trying to love on you in that time as well? Anything like that?
It's such a great question. I love that you had mentioned Whitney, who has been a great source of encouragement for me. I think it's such a good question because I've already thought of the holidays like, oh gosh, like, because the thing about, and that the holidays will really make you emotional because, I'm thinking about, Christmas Eve service. Every element of the holidays can be very triggering for someone who is experiencing infertility. And you could hold your nephew's hand and want the world to swallow you up, like little tiny things. So for me, what I've asked of Luke is like, if I'm upstairs, and I'm outing myself if any family members are listening to this. So fast forward. No, I'm just kidding. They don't listen. I talk so much on podcasts, they don't listen. But I asked Luke, like, if I'm upstairs for a long time, you better come upstairs. You better come upstairs and you need to come and see what's going on. And if I need a little break, I need a little break. If I need to lay down, I need to lay down. And just trying to have that awareness, like just the element of him checking in on me is so lovely and so encouraging. And it just, he can come up and be like, I'm okay, I just need a moment, or, whatever, like things like that. And I think
that's good.
Yeah, I think that's been hugely helpful. But, I have, I don't want to miscount. I have six nieces and nephews now, and one on the way. There'll be a new one this holiday season, which will be so much fun. And it is so sweet, but I think they're growing and they're getting older is also, very challenging. And then the element of, again, I just want to share as much as I can, the element of having a twin. I've had doctors say, are your siblings parents? Or is your twin had healthy pregnancies? Yes. Questions like that you really, I don't know that I'll have the answer. Until we get to heaven and I just say, God, what was up with that timeline? And I hope that's all I have to ask
For real, what was up with that timeline? Yep. Anytime I think about like tugging on the hem of his garment, I'm like, I remember in my mind, like yanking on it, like, Lord, come on. I love that you have that relationship with Luke. that he is aware.
Mm-hmm.
And that Whitney, I love that because I'm sure the twin bond, like the sibling bond is strong, but I feel like the twin bond is like a whole nother level.
It
Um,
is. It is so much so. And I would share this I shared this very personal thought just for those who are listening who might be experiencing this, because I think one of the craziest things that I didn't know, I didn't realize, back to the emotional side of things, is the timelines of things, right?
mm,
So when Whitney was pregnant with her second child, she found out on our birthday, and I found out on our birthday that I wasn't expecting.
mm,
What the heck,
mm.
God, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what kind of, and the poor Whitney had turmoil with that too. But
Mm,
like, what? And I say that because people don't say these crazy things that happen. Like, you
yeah.
communicate like, this is so challenging. I'm like, no, 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 no. Let me tell you why this is challenging, because this happened. And I have
Yes.
asked, I do ask God. I do say, like, what the heck? But then I really, really fight to get to a place of like, he's not forgotten about me. Even yesterday at
Yes.
church, I leaned over to Luke and I was like, I just know he has not forgotten about us.
No, he has not. Yeah. That I think I've talked to you about this a little bit, but I feel like I'm not saying that women that go through infertility are better or worse than anyone, but I do feel like the Lord, just like anything in life, you have a calling. And I think that the Lord knew, as much as it breaks my heart, I think he knew that you would remain faithful and steadfast and point women towards him
Mm,
in something that makes zero sense in the
mm,
natural. But I think that is what's so baffling about truly trusting the Lord, that the world calls crazy.
mm-hmm,
It's like he knew that you would remain faithful, even questioning him, which he can handle. I've
mm-hmm.
said very frank things to the Lord that John's like, wow, Holly, should you have? I'm like, he already knew it was in my brain. Like, I can't hide it from him. But I think just the beauty from ashes that's going to come from your story. Um, I can't wait to see how it unfolds. And I know you're tired and I know you're weary, but I do feel like there is such a larger thing happening here,
Mm,
that even more than the life of your babies, which I do believe you will have, I think that the Lord is shifting and moving and using things that you're like, I never asked for this.
mm-hmm,
But I do feel like he's using it in mighty ways.
mm,
Um, yeah. But I wish I could take it from you at the same time.
mm. Thank you. So
Yes.
sweet.
Love her. Love her
Mm.
a lot. Uh,
I think too, well, there's a couple thoughts here. Twins is what I want. So when I decided,
yes.
when all this has started happening, I'm like, okay, God, if you're going to double down on me, I'm
Yeah.
doubling down on you. So
I love that.
we can
Come
all keep that
on.
in mind,
Yeah.
because that's my prayer and my true request is that I have twins. But I
Okay.
think, to your point, like, and even to Nicole's question earlier, I think one thing that has also been really surprising about this is my empathy is through the roof. My heart
Mm,
is so softened towards people about everything, about anything that someone's going through. And I think God has really taught me a lot about that. And it's just, we're so, I could probably start crying at any point of any day in a really soft, like, it's the veil is a dramatic, maybe not the right
mm,
word, but the veil between, I don't know if it's the veil, the line between my emotions and my heart is just so much softer.
mm.
And we talked about earlier before we started recording, just one of the things that has been so encouraging to me is finding women who are going through this experience. Because in my personal community, like I shared earlier, I looked around and I'm like, okay, I think that I'm the statistic. And moving from that place to say, okay, where can I find people who
Absolutely.
are going through this and who are experiencing this? So last February, I was in a very dark place. I had started a new job. February in general is such a kind of dark month, isn't it? For so many people, it's post holidays, all of that.
Yes.
But February, I basically had like a panic attack around this whole thing. One night I was dehydrated. I couldn't sleep. I like went downstairs to get a Gatorade and I was just crying all night long, just crying. And it was just one night, but the next night was my first meeting with an infertility support group. And it came at the most perfect moment for me. And I had such an incredible time with that group that this fall I've led a group, and
Great.
to connect with these women and to have women sharing what they're doing with IVF, how their IUI is going, all of the different things, even sharing, what a doctor did to assist or didn't do, or when they took blood work, when they didn't take blood work, all of those things has just been immensely helpful. And we can ask any question that we need answered in those settings. So that has been an incredible encouragement to me. So shout out to my group if they're listening, because it's just been like the most amazing thing, and likely something I'll continue to do, I would guess, for as long as I have capacity in my life, honestly.
Yes. Yes. I think that's crucial because it's also something that I feel like did not exist, definitely not for our moms. And then the more women I meet, I have a friend who did IVF and she was like, I would have given anything to know about 1212 or like to know about just y'all's Bible study or anything like that. She's like, there was nothing. And like, there was such a lack for like when I was in the middle of it, 1212 was newer and I connected with Nicole and I was so grateful. So I feel like there's, like these groups that are coming from it, but I do feel like it's such a more recent like epidemic. Like I'll talk to Pi-Fis that I knew that are like, oh yeah, I had to do IVF, or oh yeah, I went through. I'm like, what is the deal? Like, what is in the water? What is happening? But I'm so grateful that you have that, especially being in a different state than your family. I feel like it's just crucial. So good for you. I bet they love you.
No, because there's something so just special and beautiful about being in a group with other women who know, yes, our stories are different, but we're we're walking that same path. And that's so when our arms grow tired, we know that we have someone that's helping us lift our arms. And so
yes.
that's
Amen.
beautiful.
I love that. I feel like I could just talk to y'all all day about
this.
Just keep going all the things.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, yes, Emily, you are just wonderful. I mean, your heart is just so beautiful and pure. And we just thank you. Thank you for just being so open and honest and vulnerable on the show. I truly believe that this is really going to encourage someone and bless someone, because it's hard. It is so hard out here, just walking. And so I just want to commend you for just continuing and taking one day at a time, and especially just serving others, in your group while you're walking through this. So thank you for all that you do.
So sweet. Thank you, Nicole. This has been such a treat just to recap and to share more. And I'm so grateful for all the work that you guys are doing.
Love you, girl.
Thank you. Yes. So you guys, we're going to have Emily's like info, her podcast, all of the things in the show notes. And so we want you to check out her podcast, connect with her for sure. And we will see you next week on the Purpose Beyond Motherhood podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.